hope everybody can see this. Hey, Debbie. Hi, Judy. I don't know what my computer was doing. Right before this started, I was on a virtual meeting online. So I don't know whether I did something that's weird, but anyway, I'm glad you're here. And I apologize for the delay. So, anyway, I might as well get going because now it's almost quarter past. And I just got back from Houston Quilt Festival, which is such a great event every year. Um, my classes were sold out. Everybody did a fantastic job. And it was really, as usual, a good event. And I got home before the bad weather, which in my area of Connecticut didn't end up being terrible yesterday and Sunday, but I did hear some people lost power. We never did. Hi, Deidre. Judy, it's so good to hear from you. Thank you for joining me. Um, but anyway, it was a great event, and I have one more event coming up October 27th, 28th, and 29th, I believe, in Bonita Springs, Florida. That is with Flash Sew and Quilt. And that is a big creative retreat. There are a few different educators there, and that should be really great. And I'm looking forward to really nice weather at the end of October in Florida. So that will be fun. And I was supposed to go out to Phoenix over November 13th, 14th, and 15th. Hello. Hi, Carol, too. Hello. Oh, good. Finally, I got this thing working right. I do apologize for the delay. As I said, I was in a virtual meeting, and I think it kind of screwed up something on my settings. So I appreciate it. Hi, Diana, again. Hi, Janice. But anyway, I was supposed to go out to Phoenix over November 13th, 14th, and 15th. I distinctly remember the dates because November 14th is my wedding anniversary. However, unfortunately, their event center got flooded. I don't know what happened. And I think it was a pipe maybe up around the roof or the ceiling, because they said that a lot of stuff got ruined in there. So they had to postpone that. So I will be out in Phoenix in May. I don't have the dates in front of me right now, but the event I was supposed to take part in was postponed till May. So Florida, and then my very last event of the year is with Rhode Island Sewing Network. So I'm excited to go there. I think that's around December 7th. I don't have those dates exactly. And that's just an evening lecture demo that I'm going to be doing of different serger techniques and a little trunk show and things. But I can drive to Rhode Island and home the same evening, which is nice. And I haven't seen those ladies for a long time. So I'm anxious to go out there and see them. Who else? Hi, Kathy, Shalda, Sheila, Carolyn, Bobby. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Lynn, Richmond. Oh, we got a lot of people in here. Okay, so that tells you that. As I said before, the Houston Quilt Festival was really, really good. I also bought, when I was out there, I taught all day Friday. In the morning and afternoon, I had classes, and then Saturday morning and afternoon classes. So I didn't have a lot of time to shop the whole floor, unfortunately. But I did go to the Sew Tights booth and get their new extended size magnetic cutting mat and rulers. I have the smaller one, and if you have not used their cutting mat with the magnetic rulers, and the mat itself is magnetic, it's wonderful. It's just like a really, really great cutting system that they've developed. And it has two sides to their cutting mat. It has a dark gray and a light gray. But it's really a nice thing because it keeps everything very secure on your cutting mat while you're cutting. And particularly if you have any motor limitations with your hands and arms or any strength deficits, it's great. So it holds on to those things, and you can use my affiliate code on that. I think you get like 10% off maybe. And I think it's just Gail Yellen or Gail Patrice, one or the other. So anyway, well, today what we're going to do is show you how to get perfect corners if you're not using a traditional binding on a project. And this is something that I have a little table topper project that I do at a lot of these special events. It's a fun little project. It's about a 19-inch square, and just so that everybody can experience 5 different stitches, we finished the edges with a twice as nice stitch. But you can also do it with a just a traditional 3-thread wide stitch also. Or if you have a baby lock and you like the wave stitch, you can do it with that as well. But I'm going to show you how to get really good corners on that, because there is a trick to it, and it's not hard to do. So I hope you can see it. I'm going to just switch over to the close-up camera so that you can see. And this is the same, I think it's the same photo that I posted for the thumbnail on that. So you can see how clean and nice that corner is. I think I caught this thread, or somebody else did when I had this out at an event. But it is a nice clean corner. And there is a way to achieve that is not difficult. I want to emphasize that. So what I'm going to do first, I just have a little sample piece too that I'm going to show you. Let me show you that one. I'm going to get this one out of the way. It's like one thing, and I'm going to show you some of the tools, nothing special, that you need for that. So let me go there. So this is just a little piece, a little sample piece that I did. And on one side, I have the traditional 3-thread wide stitch. I had variegated thread in the upper looper and dark or a royal blue, whoopsie, in the lower looper. And then on this edge, I did the twice as nice stitch, which is still a 3-thread wide, but where I have tweaked the tensions to create that double band of color. Debbie says that was a fun project. You're still using your pieces of placemat. Well, that's good to hear. So let's talk about that. When you're doing the outside edges, and the reason I decided this would be a good thing to do for October is because I think probably if you like to make your own gifts for the holidays, a lot of times people are thinking in terms of things like placemats, table toppers, table runners, things that might employ this little technique. And to get a nice clean corner makes it really look and finish off very nicely. So that's why I like that. So some of the things that I am going to be using, and I just want to show you. Going to go back to that camera. Let me move. I'm going to move my table a little bit so that I can reach it better. I don't know why I've got it so far away. I'm not that tall. One of the things that I use is a little height compensation tool. This is the one for overlock. And that's what Bernina calls this. It's also known as a hump jumper. You may, I think years ago there was one that was called a Gina Majig and things like that. They all do the exact same thing. So whatever you have works. Also, I like my double-eyed needles for threading in the ends of my threads into the corners on the wrong side. So those are two of the things. And so I'm going to go over to the machine, and I have my sample all set, or my piece all set to go. And again, I'm just doing it on a little sandwich one. I have fuse and fleece in between the two layers. And this is a single-sided fuse and fleece. If you're working on something with a single-sided fusible batting or fleece, whatever, I like to fuse it to the top side, the one that is going to be the one that is you see when you put your project down on a table, for instance. I do like to fuse it to that because it's really important that that side is nice and stable. So that's number one. If you accidentally fused it to the underside, I suppose you could always spray it with something like a KK2000, one of those temporary sprays, and just smooth it on your upper or top piece. And hello, Carolyn. You could do that, but I do prefer, if you have a single-sided fusible, fuse it to the top side of your project. So that's that. So now I'm going to go over, let me just show you what I have set up on the machine for my settings. I am going to start off these first edges with a traditional 3-thread wide stitch. I'm just a little bit crooked here. So, but the thing that you see is my upper looper and lower looper are on the default setting of 4 for tensions. But you will notice that the left needle, the one in the yellow box, is cranked up to 6. And you know that's not the default setting simply because those numbers are yellow. And that is telling you on the L890 or the L860 Bernina machine that you are no longer in the default setting on that particular that particular needle tension. I have my needle up. I have my stitch length on 1.2. I'm not sure whether I should have it on 1.2 or 1.3, and that's why it's always good to do a test, but I'm going to try it on 1.2 for good coverage. I have kind of a greenish blue lighter color in my upper looper, and my lower looper is a navy blue. So you're going to see on the top side, you're going to see that greenish color that kind of blends with the fabric. So let's go to the presser foot. And I think maybe I might back this out. Well, maybe not. Okay, so let me chain off first. That's the Bernina burp. Make sure I have my scissors. And when you're using those heavier threads, and I'm using 12 weight cotton threads, these are the Wonderfill spaghetti threads, but whatever heavy thread you're using, whether it is Wonderfill, Superior, any of the other brands, there are lots of good brands around. When you're starting to stitch, hang onto your thread tails behind the foot because and you want to do that until your needle bites into the fabric itself, because the thicker threads just need a little more help to get going. They're not hard to use, but there are tricks to getting a good result and a good start on that. So what I'm going to do is I have my my knee lift out because I can reach everything more easily without that knee lift in. I'm a little cramped for space when I get onto with all my cameras. So I am bringing that in. The edge of my fabric is just going to kiss the knife, and I think I'm going to see if I can maybe lighten that up a little bit. I think that's a little bit better. Here is my knife. Let me just take everything off so I can open up the machine here a second. I'm going to move my seam guide out of the way. Here is my knife right here. Here's my stitch finger. I have my stitch width from left to right on 9 millimeters. I've got it super wide, and I just love that overlock look when I'm finishing an edge. Let me move my seam guide over again. So my fabric will probably, it may just skim off a few whiskers on the edge of the fabric. However, I cut it pretty cleanly last night, so there probably won't be much lint or anything else. So I'm holding my threads with my left hand, you could see it, and I'm going to start stitching. And now I can let go of those threads. Okay, I'm just chaining off, pulling out my threads. And what I want you to notice is that when I pull my chain off and raise my presser foot, number one, I want to clear the threads from behind the foot over the stitch finger. I want to pull that thread chain out so that there's no stitching left over the stitch finger. That is important. So here's the first thing. I'm going to cut that chain. And now, and I'm going to cut the chain at the starting edge as well. Let me go over to my other camera so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay. Here's my edge. There's that beautiful 9mm stitch. There's the upper looper. The navy blue is the lower looper thread. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because what I am going to do is go down at a 90-degree angle on the next side. I'm going to cut this thread chain. Whoops, I got to make sure. Let me bring my camera forward. That might help too, so I'm not reaching so far. I hope I'm not making anyone seasick. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these threads nice and cleanly to get them out from under the next line of stitching. Here is my ending stitches. I'm going to do the exact same thing here. Get those nice and clean and toss those. I don't need them anymore. And now I'm ready to create a nice clean corner coming down. So let's do that next. Let me just trim these little threads off too. Because once these are covered up, once your loops are covered up with the next line of stitching, those might be peeking out, and I don't like to run the risk of snipping them after the second edge has been sewn, only because you run the risk of clipping stitches that you didn't want to clip. So we've got a nice clean edge now. So let's go back over to the presser foot. Okay. So let me just chain off a little bit. Whoops, my presser foot is up. Okay. Now, you can see just a few stitches right in here. This is what I'm talking about when I say clear the stitches. And if I didn't pull on the chain behind, I'd get a buildup of stitches on the stitch finger right back here. So let me just show you that. That's what you don't want to start with, because you're going to get that big, messy glob of stitching right on the corner of your project. And it looks yucky and it's not good. So what you want to do is raise your presser foot. This is called clearing the stitches. Pull your thread chain back so that you can see your stitch finger right here clearly with no stitches on it. That is important. Okay, I'm going to leave the presser foot up, but now I am going to lower my needle down, and what that's going to do is act like kind of a backstop for my fabric so that I know precisely I'm pushing my fabric in until it stops, and it's my needle that is the stopping point. So I've got it precisely lined up to start this next edge of my stitching. So I'm putting my presser foot down. Again, I am holding my thread chain to get started, but now I want to use my little hump jumper or height compensation tool. So before I start stitching, now mine has two different thicknesses on it. This is the thick end, this is the thin end. I'm going to use the thicker end, and there is a little ridge right here, and the back or the heel of the presser foot fits right in here. It's almost like putting your shoes on, if you think about it like that. That your heel is going to go right in against the back of the shoe. So, and that's exactly what I'm doing with this. So what I'm going to do, and maybe I need to back out just a smidge so you can really see. That might be a little bit better. I'm going to bring this leg of the height compensation tool or the hump jumper under my fabric, and I'm going to get it under the presser foot, and what that's going to do is level the heel of the presser foot, the back of the presser foot, so that it gets a really nice start. Sometimes if the toe is tilted up, especially if you're going over something like a thick seam on denim, upholstery fabric, sometimes even like corduroy, any of that, you're going to see your presser foot is not level. So you can use something like this. If you don't have the height compensation tool, guess what? You can just wad up a piece of fabric and use that to level the presser foot. So I have that underneath. It's all level. I'm going to move the camera just for a second, and I hope this doesn't bother anyone, so that you can kind of see exactly what I did here. You can see the edge of the height compensation piece is right in back, and the heel of the presser foot is right in there. So it's almost, as I said, like wearing a shoe. And that makes my presser foot nice and level. And this little extension is far enough left that the needle, I'm not running the risk of hitting it with my needle when I start stitching. So let me bring my camera back. I think that's kind of close. Okay, I think that's good. All right, and I am going to snugly, I'm not going to pull too hard, but I want to make sure I'm holding onto these, the thread chain behind the foot. One other thing I do want to say though, with the height compensation tool, let me go back to me for a second. The first time I used it and I started stitching, and I didn't have my hand kind of in back when I was holding onto the chain. And once the presser foot and needle had stitched forward, the whole thing went flying, and the presser foot made this huge clash. Nothing broke or anything. It was perfectly fine, but it kind of startled me, and the hump jumper went flying. So just a little warning ahead of time. Don't be afraid if you have that happen to you. So no big deal on that. All right, so let's go back. Okay, good. So we're gonna hold that. I've got my edge of my fabric right up to the needle. You can't see it. I'm a little bit above it. Let me see if I can give you a better perspective on that. I think that's probably a little bit better. Maybe not. Okay, so I'm holding this, and I'm going to kind of try to keep my index finger on my left hand, kind of on that hump jumper a little bit, just so it doesn't go flying. But if it does, you'll get a preview of coming attractions of what could happen to you. So let's give this a go. I'm going to start stitching. I want to make sure my fabric is all the way up to my needle. I didn't think it was, and it wasn't. Okay. And I'm going to hold this. And I can let go of those thread chains. Okay, so, And I'm going to cut my threads, and let's go over to the close-up camera and see how we finish this. Okay, now you saw when I did the first edges, I cut my thread chains all the way to the edge of the fabric. On this one, you want to leave a little bit of a thread chain because we want to get that tucked in with a double-eyed needle or a bodkin, whatever you have, that's fine and works for you. That's no problem. Whatever. The one thing I will say about using something to tuck in those thread chains is that make sure you're using something with a blunt or rounded end, because if you use a regular needle that has a sharp point on it, you do run the risk of snagging the stitching, which you don't want to do. Okay, so I've got a big long chain on this. I don't need that much. I'm going to cut it down to maybe about 2 inches and toss the rest of that. Now, I want to skinny down that thread chain. So what I do is I just pull on it. And you can see a little bit of a bigger loop with this navy blue thread. I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to pull just on that particular thread to snug it up a little bit. There we go. And I think that should be good. And I can just trim off that excess that I pulled out. And that's just normal. There's nothing wrong with the stitch or anything else. But sometimes when you do skinny down that stitch by pulling on the chain, one or more of the threads might not pull quite as snugly. Okay, so you can see, even just like this, it looks pretty nice and clean. So, and there's that, again, that 9mm stitch. I just love that. So what I'm doing is I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to thread my double-eyed needle about maybe 1 inch to 1.5 inches, as long as there's enough in there to secure that thread chain. I've skinnied that chain down, and it's always a good idea to cut and make sure all the ends are even, because quite frankly, this is the trickiest part. Get all of your threads into the eye of your bodkin or double-eyed needle, and as I said, there is a trick to it. You just have to be a little bit patient. There we go. Okay, so that's in. I don't want to pull quite that much. So now I'm just going to pull this all the way through. And I'm keeping my finger on it. Now I'm going to give it that little, what I call a snug tug. And then I can snip off the excess, just clean up those edges a little bit, and look at what a nice clean corner I get. It's really, really easy to do. So let's go through the steps again. Let's talk about this. Are there any questions so far? Oh, Deidre says she misses her machine and can't wait to get it back. I know. Mine is very overdue for a spa day. And I've got to get it in. But I've been so busy trying to get some projects done and things like that, that I haven't been able to part with it, quite frankly. So, but let's go through those steps. So I have stitched the first edge. I have cut my thread chains even with the edge of the fabric that you can see on both edges. And what I like to do, and if you've taken my tabletopper class at an event, it's not something that I have as a pattern. It's a project that I do when I do these events at different dealers. But you've heard me talk about saying when you're ready to finish the edges. I like to do 2 parallel edges first and then do the second 2 parallel edges. And on the first 2, again, I cut my thread chains even with the edge of the fabric on both ends. And that way I'm not dealing with threads and loops and all of that stuff underneath when I go to do the right angle edge of this. Deb is saying, does this work for a rolled hem? You're thinking for napkins. Honestly, for a rolled hem, I just go around and I do one side, cut the threads, next side, cut the threads, next side. And then I do trim the original edge if I'm not starting in front of the knife. But typically when I do a rolled hem, you saw that on this one, when I started this second edge, I started up by the needle. The edge of the fabric was past the knife. On a rolled hem, typically I'm going to put that in because I want to get, like on linen and cotton and stuff like that, the edges tend to be kind of thready and not quite as clean. So yes, it would work, but I do not thread my thread tails under at the end on the wrong side with a rolled hem, because the rolled hem is so narrow that if you try to force a double-eyed needle under there, or even sometimes a regular needle, you run the risk of pulling that stitch off the edge because it's so narrow. Think about how many threads on the edge of the fabric a rolled hem is hanging onto. And that's an excellent question because it gives us another opportunity to learn something about that. If it's only hanging onto a few fibers in from the edge, the raw edge of the fabric. So what I do is I go around all my napkins. Say I'm making 6, 8, or 12 napkins. I'll go around, I'll leave my thread chains on all 4 corners. Then if I'm using Serger cone thread or like an embroidery weight thread, a machine embroidery weight thread, I can use that. Let it dry. Then I go back and snip off all those thread tails, and it works fine. Now, the reason I like to tuck in the thread chain, so on something like this, is because this is a 12 weight thread. It's thicker, it's heavier. And honestly, Freight Check is a very, very good product, but I do not think it's strong enough to hold the edges on a 12 weight thread. And that's why I say when you're doing those adjacent edges, don't cut the thread chain right next to the fabric. You do want to tuck it in. But if by accident you do snip them off and make them even, what I like to hold the stitching with on that corner to secure it is good old original super glue or crazy glue, one that dries crystal clear. It makes the edges dry. It kind of has a hard bead to it, as you know, when that glue dries. But that's what you need if you accidentally snipped off that edge and it's short, because you need something that's not going to let the thread unravel on the corner. But my preference is to have the thread chain on that adjacent corner and feed it in and hide it under the stitching on the wrong side of your project. Oh, somebody's saying the audio is gone. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me see if I can turn it up. I just turned it up. Is that any better? Okay. Maureen said no need for fray check on the cut threads. When I'm doing the first couple of edges and I cut them even, those edges are going to be covered with the next line of stitching. So no, you don't need to fray check those. Okay, so some people are saying they don't have audio. Others are saying it's going in and out. But others are saying theirs is fine. So I'm not really sure what's going on. We have had some bad weather on the East Coast, so I don't know whether that is causing the problem or not. Sue Hudson says, refresh the video if you're having unsynced audio and visual. Yeah. But if you go back to the recording after we're all done, I think the sound should be fine and it should be synced fine. But it could be because we have had bad weather. Or I'm not sure if you people are all over the country, so obviously it's not just a regional issue. Okay. Susan Hurt said she closed out of YouTube and came back in, and now it's fine. Okay, perfect. And everybody else is saying refreshing it worked well. Okay, that's great. All right, so wonderful. All right, so going back, as I said, the first edges you're going to trim clean at the end, just like this. If I were doing this edge next, I'm not sure what, oh, that's just a little thread it picked up. So then when I would go down here, that's where I would leave my thread chain so that I could tuck in those edges that cover the first 2 lines of stitching on the other parallel edges. Oh, good. Everybody's saying it worked. So, oh, yay, we love that. So that is the key. So again, let's review for anyone who is having trouble listening or hearing. So I've done my first edge. I've cut my threads and my stitching even with the raw edge of my table runner or table topper. Then I'm ready. I'm going to do the other parallel edge, and then I'm ready to do this edge. So what I did was, let's go back to the machine. Okay, so I raised my presser foot. Number 1, it is raised. I am going to clear the threads from the stitch finger. Very important. Just all you have to do that, there's no trick to it. You're just going to pull back on that thread chain. And now, let's get this out of the way. And now you can clearly see there's no thread on that stitch finger, or no stitch on the stitch finger. Okie doke. Okay, so then when I'm ready to do that right angle edge, I am going to turn my hand wheel toward me. I didn't say that before. Turn your hand wheel toward you. Lower the needle so that then that acts like a backstop. And maybe we can just repeat this and do one more time. I'm going to cut the thread on this edge so that we can repeat this one more time for everybody. All right. So I have just trimmed off the excess loops right on the edge of this. I've got my needle down. Where did my little hump jumper go? Hang on. It always goes flying a little bit. Hang on. Let me just see where it went on the table. Oh, here it is. Okay. It didn't fly that far. Let me move this out and over for a better angle. I hope I'm not making people sick. Okay. So I've cleared my threads. My needle is down. I am going to put my hump jumper, just like putting a shoe on your foot, under the back of the presser foot. The heel of the presser foot is right against that raised ridge on the hump jumper. Don't tell anyone in Switzerland I'm calling it that. And now I'm bringing my fabric in. I'm going to raise that presser foot just a little bit. Bring that right up, that edge right up to the needle. Okay. Now I'll put my presser foot down. I am holding on to these thread chains to help it get going over the edge of the fabric. I'm holding those thread chains with a little bit of tension, not a lot, but just a little bit. just to help it get going over those threads. That was what I was talking about for the hump jumper. Pull those threads off, trim them. This is good, so we'll have a little refresher here for a minute. Okay, so let's go to the close-up camera. Okay, so here is my edge. Now, this is what I'm talking about, skinnying down the stitch and getting rid of these little excess loops on the edge. Sometimes it's not a bad idea either just to hang on to the edge of your project. And if you have to pull one decorative thread at a time, that's okay. The whole name of the game is get a good finish on your project. Okay, I see still a little bit of a loop on this dark blue. And I think I've pulled it tight enough. Okay. And I've skinnied down my stitch. Actually, I've kind of undone the chain. Does that matter? Absolutely not. Hang on, let me just snip these because they're really long. Toss the excess. We're going to turn it over. And I'm going to use my double-eyed needle. Slide it under my stitches for about an inch, an inch and a half. That's plenty to secure it. Get my threads into the eye of the double-eyed needle, just like that. Okay, and now we're going to just pull them through. Give it that nice snug tug. Clip it right next to the stitching, and you get a nice clean corner. Are there any questions about that at all? Susan says, you missed the first part of the chat. Is a hump jumper only for use on the Bernina? No, for the baby, for any serger like that, what you're doing, Susan, is you're leveling the presser foot, because if you don't use that, what happens is when you're going over say a quilt sandwich, which essentially this is like a little mini quilt sandwich. You've got the two layers of fabric, the top and the bottom, and you've got batting or fleece in between. So it creates thickness. Also, when you've created that stitching on the first edge with a 12-weight thread or even an 8-weight thread, that adds a lot more thickness because I've got it on the top as well as the back of that. So it's giving, you see how thick that looks from the edge? So what happens is when you put that under the presser foot, what happens, my fingertips are the toe of the foot. It tilts the toe of the foot up, and the heel of the presser foot is down. So what it does is it affects the tension on your stitching. You want your presser foot to be level, so that little hump jumper will lift the back of the foot to be even and allow the presser foot to relax and be level on the fabric itself. And that's why I like to bring the needle down by turning the hand wheel toward me. And that needle, when you put your fabric in for that next edge, you bring it right up to the needle. And so you don't have a lot of excess thread to deal with on the edge or a bunch of loops that you really can't get rid of when you go to tuck in those final thread tails on the corners. But that's what that does. And as I said, if your machine does not have one of those, it is an accessory. It didn't come with the Bernina. It's an accessory to the foot to the machine. You can just buy a generic hump jumper, or as I said, let me just show you what I was talking about for using something as an alternative for that. I've just got a little piece of fabric that's sitting here on the table. So what I'm going to do, let me just switch over to the VZX because this is all good information if you don't have one. This is just a piece of cotton. This is like nothing. Let me bring this out just a little bit. Whoops. What did I hit? Uh-oh. I just hit something. Okay, I think we're, maybe not. Okay, now we're back to normal. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is just a piece of cotton. So what you can do is just fold this a couple of times to give it some thickness, all right? And then, depending on how thick an edge you have and how tilted your presser foot is, if you needed to fold it again, go ahead and do that. But let's go over to the machine and see how we use that instead. Okay, so you don't have a hump jumper or a height compensation tool. So what you can do is with this, you can just pop that in back of the needle. Don't get it caught under the needle. It has to be behind the foot. And I kind of line it up with this edge of the presser foot so I know it's behind the needle and isn't going to get stitched into my project. So yes, no matter whether you have a Bernina, a Baby Lock, Janome, Juki, Viking, Pfaff, any of those brands, this is just a technique that is across the board for any brand or model machine in overlock mode. It's always good to keep your presser foot level. So if you don't have one, you can use something that's just kind of a substitute, like a little hunk of fabric. That's all it is. But all it's doing is keeping it level. It's almost like, if you think about it, I know a bunch of years back I broke my leg, and I went from a cast and crutches to one of those walking boots, and it was my left leg, and that one was the boot made my hip and foot higher than on my right side, so I had to have one of my shoes built up a little bit more on the right side to level both of my feet. It's kind of the same principle so that you're not like teetering, and it keeps that presser foot nice and even and level, and so it allows the stitching to look good. Yes, Susan, you said it looks like you can use the technique when you're edging with the wave stitch. Yes, it's exactly the same thing. And also for the twice as nice stitch that I had showed in the beginning, or just the sample of in the beginning too. Any of those decorative stitches on the edge, even if you wanted to use a narrow overlock stitch as opposed to a wide one, and somebody else said, how do you get a 9mm wide stitch? The Bernina is the only one that has the 9mm. If you're working with a Baby Lock, your maximum stitch width, and we're talking left to right, we're not talking stitch length, is 7.5. So depending on what brand of machine you have, I know there, the L8 series has the 9mm stitch. I think the 4 series might have it as well. Baby Lock has a maximum width of 7.5. Some of the other machines have a 7mm stitch width maximum. I've seen some of the older machines, or maybe more of the entry-level machines, that might have a maximum stitch width of 6. But all of this still is the same information, whether you have a 6mm wide maximum or a 9mm. The principles are exactly the same. So you can get a great looking finish on your project even with that 6mm stitch width. So it's not something that is exclusive to this machine at all. I just want to make that nice and clear for you. So what else? Oh yeah, Susan Hudson says she saw someone use a Schmetz needle case. There you go. See, these are all things that you can substitute in, and that would work perfectly because I would bet, where did my hump jumper go flying off to? Here it is. I would bet that the needle case is probably almost exactly the same width as the thick end. And I don't know if you could see it on the close-up camera, but you can see if you had a quilt sandwich or something else that had a little bit shallower edge, you could use the skinny side of this. But this one is for the overlock function on this machine. They also have one for the covered chain stitch as well, and that one looks like this, and they have the same thing, 2 different thicknesses, thick end, skinny end, and that one is for the covered chain stitch. But the one we use today for overlock mode is this, and I guess this is probably easier to see. There's the back of my shoe, okay, that I'm putting my presser foot into. So I have put my presser foot in and put the back of the presser foot right against the back of the shoe, right here, if that makes sense for everybody. The Schmetz needle case. Let me see if are there any other questions about that at all? Okay. All right. Also, I wasn't sure whether people had come in or not. I just wanted to mention I will be at Flash Sew and Quilt October 27, 28, 29. They have a big sewing creative retreat in Bonita Springs that is going to be really, really fun to go to. If my computer wasn't working correctly, I wanted to mention also that on the last Serger Savvy in September, I mentioned being out in Phoenix, Arizona, excuse me, at 35th Avenue, November 13, 14, 15. They had a flood in their event center, so they had to postpone my event until May. So when we get closer to that, I'll give you the dates on that. But the last event of 2025 will be with the Rhode Island Sewing Network, so that'll be kind of fun to see all those people again. And as I said, I haven't seen them for a while, so that'll be great. But if you have suggestions or questions or things that you would like me to demo in these Serger Savvy lives or on a tip clip, please shoot me an email. I'm always looking for ideas to present to make your stitching experience easier, better, and looking great. So I'm all ears, eyes, and open mind to any of your suggestions or requests for a technique or anything else on that. I am more than happy. Also, at the beginning, I forgot to show you, if you are, hang on, I'll be right back. Let me just grab it. Hang on. If you are in the market, maybe for a holiday gift from me to me, from you to you, if you're thinking about purchasing a Bernina machine or software, any purchase over $1,000 is eligible for the Ambassador Appreciation Coupon. And that is a thank you from Bernina of America, and it's only for U.S. customers because it is Bernina of America. But it is a $100 rebate check. It's not a gift certificate for more merchandise. It's a $100 thank you from Bernina of America for tuning into my program, for purchasing their machine, for supporting Bernina and Gail Patrice Design. And so if you're thinking about purchasing it, you have to have the coupon prior to making the purchase. It's not retroactive on previous purchases. Just shoot me an email and include your mailing address, and I will get that coupon out to you very quickly, and do so happily. It's just a great thing. And then it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to process. I will say that they've been very, very busy, especially at this time of year when people are buying things. And just to mention that a lot of the dealers did stock up on machines prior to the tariffs going into effect. So if you can get in on a pre-tariff pricing on your machine, I strongly suggest you do that, because it really does make a jump in the price if the tariff has already gone into effect. But I'll be happy to send you that, and that will defray that cost by $100, and which is really a great deal. But Charlotte says, come to Berkeley, San Francisco Bay. I was just out in Anaheim a few weeks ago, and that was great. If you have a dealer, Charlotte, that you love in the Berkeley area, ask them to set up an event for me. I'd be very happy to do that. So I'd love that. And oh, what else? Let me see. Any other questions? What did I miss here? I just see a lot of things with the audio. I talked about the hump jumper, part of the bundle. Yes, and you can use it with the wave stitch, the Schmetz needles. Come to Berkeley, California. Okay, good. I think I covered all of that. But let me think if there was anything else. We are heading into the holiday season, so keep your eye on my YouTube and Instagram and all of that. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do, and you'll receive a notification when I'm going to post a new, or when I have posted a new tip clip or an upcoming Serger Savvy, which is always the second Tuesday of the month, unless I'm traveling, but most of the time I'm home on a Tuesday. But second Tuesday of the month at noon Eastern time. And again, if you can't catch it live, you can always see the recording on my YouTube channel. So if we don't have any more questions, I apologize for the glitch at the beginning, but as I say, I was on a virtual meeting phone call right before this, so I think probably it was my fault. I'll take the hit on that. So anyway, but I thank you all for joining me today. If you have any questions about this technique too, if you send me a question about it and you've tried it and you have a problem, try to include a photograph, a close-up photograph of the front and back, because that always helps me troubleshoot more accurately right from the get-go. But anyway, I hope you're all having fun for Halloween, that if you're not going out trick-or-treating, that you get lots of kids in the neighborhood coming out. We've had a turnover of families in our neighborhood, and just right across the street we have some little kids, so I'm hoping to see more kids this year than I did last year, which I always think. Oh, Tina, thank you. Anyway, but happy October, everyone. Happy sewing and serging. Keep an eye out for my vacuum also, if you're looking for a great gift, and to keep your serger nice and clean. I also did a video on all of the different components that come with it, because not only is it a vacuum, but the back end of it is an air blower and duster. So there are attachments that go on that too, which is great. So it's a multi-functional vacuum machine. So anyway, well, thank you, everybody. And I will see you probably before the second Tuesday in November, posting a new tip clip. And there may be an upcoming class that I am working on, and hopefully it'll be done for November. So keep an eye out for that. But thanks, everybody. And I will see you again soon. Happy sewing and serging. Take care.